My healing journey included therapy, and I was encouraged to spend time doing what brought me joy, being at the beach. After walking and praying, I always left with greater clarity and even peace. I encourage you to rediscover your body, your heart, and your soul at play. This was one of the many recommendations by my therapist, Mishara Winston. Let's normalize therapy. It helped me understand that workplace bullying is abuse.
Hi.
I'm doing just fine. I'm happy to see your face. You look glorious per usual.
I'm happy to see yours. I'm sorry.
You don't have to apologize for emotion.
You're right. You taught me that I don't have to apologize for that. I am so happy to see you. I'm sorry, I'm putting my ugly cry on. It's been a while, hasn't it? Although I feel like it hasn't been, but it has. When I look back at the dates, it's been since, oh gosh, the last time I talked with you was in 2021 because
It's been years.
yes, we were in St. Pete, and I remember pulling over to the side of the road to finish talking with you about that move and I think I was upset about not being able to say goodbye to the audience and how I left so abruptly. And I wanted to give them some semblance of just my appreciation for rocking with me for all of those years and kind of apologizing, if you will, to say, I'm sorry that I left so abruptly, but here's the reason why. But I'm celebrating my new life. And we talked about that. And I ended up not doing anything because we were moving to St. Pete and we were just, there was so much going on. And I didn't realize how raw my emotions still were. I was
Mm.
still I was still going through it. I was still going through it. And it's taken me this long to finally get to a place where I can talk about it without crying. Now, my tears were because I saw you, but not because of the situation. I finally got to a place where I could talk about it and, try to help other people. But it's been a journey. Healing is not a quick process.
Oh, it's absolutely not. Not when it's done genuinely, not when it's done with self-compassion and self-accountability,
Yeah.
not for show, not for trying to be inspirational to other people, but
Mhm.
instead when we're being really honest.
Yeah.
It's not a rush job. And I'm grateful. I'm
Mhm.
grateful for us learning to slow down because what we birth when we will breathe and be honest is so much different from what we birth when we can't.
So true.
So I'm grateful. I'm looking at like on my cell phone where I was then, where I am now, thinking about where you were, and it's been literal years.
Been years. It has been. I started seeing you in 2019. And I don't know, do you remember the very first time that we met? I vividly remember
So
it. It's a movie in my heart that will last forever.
so that is one of the things that I was hoping that today we can chat about on the podcast because I think that is such a funny story. And I would love to hear the memory for you because the way my memory works, most people, I have no idea what the first time is I met them.
Mhm.
But I remember meeting you and I remember where I was mentally. And
Mm.
so I really am excited to hear like, this is what it was like for you because I bet it was very different for me
It,
and it was such a like a powerful experience.
it was. I mean, woo, when I tell people that I went to a therapist, which, people are like, what are you doing going to a therapist? Although I will say that stigma has now finally been erased from my heart and soul and spirit, because all of us need to speak to someone who can offer us, an objective kind of opinion, or not even opinions, but to help steer us in the right direction, who clearly has no other desire than to help us. There's nothing that you're trying to get from us. There are no ulterior motives. I mean, you're strictly there to engage and help us move to see where we are so that we can make the proper decisions for ourselves. And you were the very first person that I had ever gone to, besides the two people that I went to before I finally found you, who I finally said, okay, they are not the right match. They're not the
I
right.
didn't even know you had that experience.
Yeah, I had gone to two other people, and I had spoken to one person, had seen another person in person, physically. But the second person, who literally didn't understand a word, they were like, well, what's the problem? And I kept sitting here going, I know that what I'm feeling and what I've experienced is real. This is not in my mind. And she made me feel as if what my experience was, she didn't validate my experience, put it that way. She didn't validate it. And I needed to hear someone not just immediately say, well, that's not really what happened, or have you thought about it this way? They might have been, their intentions weren't X, Y, and Z, or what you're feeling. And that's when I thought, this is not the right person. That was the second time. So when I found you, I just went on the internet, Google, and I typed in POC therapist, Indianapolis, and a number of names came up. And I saw, did I see your face? I can't remember if I saw your face, but for whatever reason, I believe that God led me to you. I know he did. And I remember telling Archie, I said, I found someone. And I said, I gotta go. And he says, well, it's your third time. Do you think they're going to be any better? I was like, I don't know. I said, but I'm dying. And so I remember sitting out in the lobby area of the Stutz building. You had another client, and I was sitting there in the lobby on that kind of bench. And I remember looking out the windows. I think I could see the windows from another room or something that was no, I'm sorry, they were just doors, other offices. But it was maybe about a few minutes or so after the scheduled meeting, if you will. And I thought, well, Andrea, if you want to run, you can go right now. Just get up and leave. She won't even know you're here. Because there was a part of me that was embarrassed because it was me, and I didn't want you to recognize me because you didn't know. I mean, I think I gave you maybe Andrea Allen and not Andrea Moorhead. Mm-hmm. And so there was a part of me that was feeling a little ashamed. And I thought, if you want to go, you can go right now. She'll never know it was you. Because I found that to be a hindrance to people really helping me. They were seeing Andrea, the television lady, not Andrea, the person, not a woman who's here who needs help, not someone who is deserving of being heard and validated. So when you first came out, you were saying bye to, I think it was another woman, I believe. And I don't remember, but I just remember, just in my own mind, kind of watching you, and you were saying goodbye to them, and you were just so nice. And that moment made me feel comfortable. I thought, okay, she just seems like a really nice person, and I need someone who's going to be kind. And you had this beautiful smile. You just said, come on in. And we sat down, and you asked me, you had the aromatherapy was going in the room. You walked over, you asked me if I wanted some tea. You made tea for yourself as you're drinking. You made tea. And I said, I don't think I got any. I think I was just so nervous. I said, no, thank you. And you sat on my left. I was in the right. You were in the left chair. And there was a little table between the two of us. And you were just like, so why are you here? And even at that moment, you never even noticed that it was me, technically. You didn't say anything. And I thought, okay, this is great. She's not going to be like, oh, and what? Like, it was none of that, which was beautiful for me. And that's when I felt really, really comfortable. And you just said, so tell me about yourself. And it was kind of, that first intake session. And I just remember taking a very, very deep breath. I just took a deep breath and I said, I'm here because of my workplace. And I need to share with you what's been going on so I can hear if I'm making too much of this and if I should just let it go and just put my head down and keep working. But I feel as if I see my body at the bottom of a cliff. One foot is about to jump and my soul is breaking.
Oh,
And you did just what you're doing now. When I said that,
because listen,
you literally said, hold on a minute. And you grabbed your tissue and you just cried with me. I found the right person because I needed someone who didn't know me, who had no dog in the fight, if you will, who just would listen and hear me. And you were literally like, when I say you saved my life, I am who I am now because you helped me get to the other side so that I could truly honor my voice, honor my feelings, honor who I am as a human being. And I will forever be grateful to you. I will forever be grateful to you. I have more people now who say, you look younger than ever. You look happier. And I am so happy. I am so happy. And I just want to publicly thank you for literally saving my life. For saving my life and helping my family. My family has been saved. My son has been saved. My husband, all of us have been saved because of you, because you helped me you validated who I was as a human being. And you didn't make light of what I was going through. And you helped me just navigate. And I'm just so incredibly grateful. And I just want to say thank you. I want to give you your flowers now because you deserve them. So thank you. So that was my recollection.
Angela.
I don't know if you remember that, but we had a tear fest and
Oh my God.
I was blown away. And at that point, God said, this is why you have to go through these other two people to get to her, because she's the one who is going to help turn your life around for the good. So thank you.
I am. I mean, what is one to say besides thank you? Thank you for trusting me as a stranger. Thank you for the courage. Ooh, the courage of reaching out. I very much know what it's like to enter a therapist's office and they're so impressed with you because they know you from media, or in my case, social media. And they're so busy fangirling over you that they don't recognize that you are breaking, or that you are gifted, incredibly gifted, but you have come because there is a particular area of your journey for you to get to the next place, and you need support. You don't need someone who's going to say, you're fine, you got it. You need someone to say, oh, this is my specialty. And so I was so honored to work with you. I was so honored to root for your family. I was so honored to root for you as a human. And I was honored to help you reroute back into yourself. Because, I know very little about anything about like being in public facing media. I very much know about, like, my clients now are all people who are leaders, care leaders, wellness leaders, people who really are invested in their own shared lived experience communities thriving. But there was an age difference, there is an experience difference. And I'll tell you, my experience meeting you was so much like it's parallels, it's happening at the same time, but I'm going to share what mine was. Yes. But ultimately, I'm so grateful for our work. I'm
Mm.
so grateful for I'm so grateful to be in alignment with what I am supposed to be doing in the world. I am
Amen.
grateful for that. And when
Purpose. Yes.
people reach out because they say there's something in me that sees something in you, and so I'm going to invest in myself by
Mm.
investing and in my gifts by investing in you, Mishara, and your gifts. And we get to stay in alignment with
Yes.
what we're both supposed to be doing in the world.
Mhm.
Oh, it's
Mhm.
so wonderful. It's
It's
so
so
wonderful.
good. So
I'm
good.
so grateful.
Mm.
When I met you, I was working in that beautiful, tiny studio in the Stutz building.
I
So I
loved it.
I did too. It was my first well, actually, that's not true. It was one of my first spaces for seeing clients. And this is when I saw everybody face to face because pre-pandemic,
Right. Pre-pandemic. Hmm.
who would have known how things would change? But so I've got this artist space and I love it. And I very much knew because of the type of, because I knew from youth that people do something special, something incredible. Now I have the words for it. Now I have somatics, body based. Now I have embodiment, but I knew they do something special when they can play. And
Hmm.
so in that space, it was like there was a hammock and two recliner chairs. There's tea. There's toys. There's all this stuff because I really wanted every adult that came through to say, "Oh, this is a play space for me."
Yes. Safe space.
Absolutely. Safe space, safe play space, a safe playground environment.
Mhm.
However, in that space, because I saw people in the evenings and they were not set up for an evening type business and the building was closed,
Mhm.
I was at a continual point of annoyance that my clients would be sitting in the hall and
Mm.
security would go through the building because it's after hours for that building, but
Right.
it's we just started in an evening therapy practice at that time.
And this is the Sunday.
Yes. So I'm
Hmm.
working evenings and weekends, and they're like, the building is closed. I said, not for my therapy clients, not for my
Yeah.
coaching clients.
Mhm.
So I remember opening the door to my studio. And as I'm walking towards you, I remember thinking to myself, I wonder how this person is going to perceive that I'm a few minutes behind because I'm always a few minutes behind. It's who I am, and it's okay. It's
It's
okay.
okay. All right.
Um, but I'm going to flow in the moment. So the moment is a few minutes behind. And why do we have my clients sitting in dark hallways? It drove me up a wall because
Wow.
I wanted from the moment someone came in with the courage that you had for them to be sitting in a well-lit, beautiful, affirming sensory area. And so I was judging myself. I
Mm.
was judging myself. So here I
Mm.
am moving in my gifts, but I'm thinking this person doesn't know me and their first impression is I'm a few minutes behind. Wait till they find out, hey, I'm very embodied. I do what my body says. So I'm going to be a few minutes behind.
Mm.
But, they're sitting in this dark hallway. What are they going to think? And I remember when I walked up to you, your face was cast down. I don't know if you were looking at your phone or something else. You put your head up and your eyes stuck with me.
Mm.
And that's pretty, powerful
Mm.
because of something else, which ended up working in your favor and our favor. I have facial blindness. So you could have been anybody, but it's kind of like you're saying, like, it was a blessing because you didn't know me. I'm like, oh, I wouldn't have known you anyway because
Way.
I don't know people by facial features. And so you looked up and your eyes had so much pain in them that I thought, is this person furious because I'm a few minutes behind? What is this person going through? And then, I took a breath probably and I said, no matter what, be in your gifts and keep going. Because I didn't know if you were angry with me,
Mm,
but I said, if this person, what am I going to do besides be in my gifts
yeah.
and be in integrity and be ethical and apologize and move forward? So when you sat down with me and I got to know you, I got to really understand how much pain you were in. And then we began this journey around listening to your body, trusting yourself. Because people, we use those phrases, listen to your body, trust yourself. What happens, what support is in place when people let their bodies tell them the effing truth? Like, what support is in place when your body starts telling you
Yeah.
this relationship, this situation, this employer, this circumstance is hurting me?
Mhm.
Who is there to support that process?
Yes.
And so that was my memory of meeting you, that moment of, a little bit of self-criticism and then saying, Mishara, it's
Good.
okay. You're
Mhm,
feeling a little
mhm.
shame in your body, a little embarrassment in your body, a little, confusion, deep empathy for this person, responsibility and integrity. And we're going to keep going. We're going to stay in it.
Yeah.
So that was my experience. Me, being like, how, oh no, how am I looking? And then saying, I'm looking like whatever I'm looking like.
Whatever I'm looking like this
Let's
is what
move
it is.
forward.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Wow, that's interesting how two people are coming to the same moment in life with a different perspective of where they are in that moment about this meeting. I think
Mhm.
it's so I had no idea that that's what was going on in your mind, nor did I know at that time that you didn't even recognize me, which is another reason for me when I'm like, God sent me to you. Do you remember as we were sitting there in the beginning and I shared one of the incidents with you, the very first one, which was the most recent one, that one of my coworkers saw me in an accident about 2 blocks or so away from the station, and how I was standing outside with this other person, and it was getting dark in the evening, and they just drove by and didn't stop. And that's when you started crying and you said, you're like, hold on a moment. And you still had the tissue in your hand and you cried again and you said, I just want to thank you for coming and being here, because you, from what you're already telling me, you should be dead. You should be dead. And again, that's when I knew I had the right person to talk with to help navigate me through what was a hostile work environment. It was one of the worst workplace cultures I have ever been in my life. And I knew that it was different because I've worked in great places with great people who I'm still friends with of all races and ethnicities and cultures from back when I was 17 years old. My first job in Worcester, Massachusetts, still friends with them. None of them look like me, but I'm still friends with them because for me, it's all about humanity. What are you bringing to the table? Who are you? How do we support one another? How are we kind to one another? What do I do to show my humanness to you? And is that being reciprocated? I have worked with and know people from way back when I was a kid, who I've grown up with, who know who I am as a person. And I was beginning to question, is it me? Is what I'm going through at this place because of me? Did I cause something? Did I say something? Did I do something? And I believe that over those 15 years, I was literally trying to confine myself into kind of a box, if you will, to try to create that atmosphere that they would be comfortable with, even though I didn't need to do that anywhere else or with anybody else. And we just began that journey of just kind of demystifying those preconceived ideas that I had about myself, and understanding that those moments that I would share with you along the way were not right, first of all, because I needed that to be affirmed, that it was not in my head, that my body was really speaking to me. And I know that the breast cancer that I had, was the result of that stress that I have been carrying on for so long, for over 15 years. And I just think about so many of those moments when I was there. There were touch points where I vividly remember. And the reason why I remember is because now I understand it was trauma. And the day that you told me that what I had been experiencing was an assault against humanity, that I was literally being abused. When you
Yes.
use the word abuse, I was like, I gotta go. And in my mind and heart and spirit, I began to emotionally divorce myself from the harm because I was still there and I had to work. But I began to see it for what it was, what I thought intuitively, but I had affirmation from you that that indeed is what was going on. And you really helped give me the tools to see it for what it is and to begin navigating my exit strategy, which is what you said. You got to get out of there. You literally said it was like watching that movie Ghost, where Whoopi Goldberg says, "Girl, you in danger." You were like, "Girl, you in danger."
At the
I don't know if you
point of
remember that.
which, at the point of which we are questioning our sanity, our health is at great physical and emotional risk. We have to do things differently. We need to do things differently before we get to that place so we don't create environments and interactions and dynamics like that. But I think that there are all of these tools to help people navigate relationships that we call intimate partner violence or domestic violence. And so often in these conversations about gaslighting or in these conversations about when someone who is traumatizing you, you end up in a bond with them. So trauma bonding. Um, we don't apply these tools to environments outside of dating partners, and we need to. We need to look at the tool for DV or intimate partner violence, which one of them is the power and control wheel versus the healthy relationship wheel. Look at that power and control wheel and think about your work environment. Look at that power and control wheel and think about how one group of people treats another group of people, or how one country or one, I don't know, think about how your family members and you are treating each other and see if it applies. And when we did that with these tools that, they're right there on Google, power and control wheel, etc., it was very clear to see this is abuse. This is harm. You're not making this up. And the quality of your life reflects what you believe about yourself, what is being confirmed in your environment, if you are being nourished and nurtured and supported in your power, or if you are being taught that something about you being in your gifts and working for your highest good is wrong.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so, I just applying those tools and keeping it out of, well, is your husband doing this to you? And instead saying, like, is this happening to you, period? Where are the areas in your life where you look at this and your body says, oh no, oh no, that's familiar.
Absolutely. What do you say, because workplace hostility, apparently it seems unfortunately to be on the rise. More and more people are beginning to talk about it on LinkedIn, on social media. And if you type in workplace hostility, workplace microaggressions, passive aggressiveness, gaslighting, workplace culture, I mean, a bevy of articles and stats will come up. My question is, how do we as a people, as human beings, how do we make workplaces better? What are we not doing? I can tell you what I know what they're not doing. They're not holding people accountable. In my situation, they certainly didn't. I mean, I went through 2.5 years of saying, this is going on, this person's doing X, Y, and Z, and no one either not believing me or just refusing to, well, just turning a blind eye and refusing to do anything about it. How do we create better workplace environments for everyone to thrive?
Oh, that's a
And
big
it's a
question.
loaded question. I know there's,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a lot. But how
So
do we begin to move in a better direction?
I'll say this. I'll say, as a person who, so I have godchildren and I love to cook. And if I heard one of my godchildren was sick and I wanted to do something about it within my own gifts, I would say, what are the symptoms?
Mhm.
And then I would say, okay, when did it start, etc. And I would go in that kitchen and I would use some roots and some herbs and some ingredients to get to the root of how they got sick, cause
Mhm.
the root. And so I think when people want to address patterns and cycles in the workplace, they have to be willing to say these are symptoms.
Mhm. Mhm.
What is under the soil? And they need to be able to get down to roots. And this isn't, I would say, this is not the work of just, um, employees, et cetera. This is the root, this is the work of leadership, administration, and those with the most um, obvious power. It
Power.
is
Oh.
those people
Mhm.
who move in ways that support
Mhm.
having a liberatory workplace, having a nourishing workplace, having the type of workplace where people are empowered to show their talents without exploitation, roots. And so, in my work with folks, I'm always asking, okay, so when I talk about a boundary, it's like a boundary is a kept action-based, pleasurable promise to self. I'm asking people, what is your root understanding of pleasure? What is your root understanding of what will happen if you have boundaries? What is the root of how did your mother get to experience this? How did your
Mm.
grandfather get to experience this? And so in the workplace, it's what were we founded on? Let's tell the truth about the roots.
Let's tell the truth about you have I took so many copious notes, as you remember. I don't know if you
Oh,
did or not, but I mean, I go back and I read all of the things that you've said, and I'm like, gosh, it just makes perfect sense. Like, I get it. That is so, it's like visual. I can see that. What is the root? Let's get down to the root of this. What's under the soil? Mm,
right.
that's
How
rich.
were we created and who in that was lifted? Who in
Mhm.
that was normalized? Who was
Mhm.
not? And how do we center those who we have benefited from? Because you've always benefited from your administrative assistants. You've
Right.
always benefited from women in the workplace.
Mhm.
You've always benefited. So, who have we benefited from? And were they ever centered, as in, was the organization, the company, or the industry structured around them as the leadership norm?
Mhm.
And for a lot of organizations, it's not. And so we get into restructuring, we get into um, redesigning processes and programs by listening to the expertise of those people and making sure that they are leading. But that means, if we go back to that power and control wheel, that means recognizing the places in which we feel that power is so scarce or we're so afraid that we're like, oh, but what will happen to my influence? And so people want to lift folks up sometimes and place them into DEI roles, so to speak, but they haven't let go of any of the reins. And so for work like that, since DEI isn't my specialty, but for work like that, I go on ahead and cite the article. I'm gonna have to get the author's correct name, but it's called White Supremacy Culture, and it's absolutely about the workplace. And she describes a culture of perfectionism, a culture of urgency, and all of those things that colonially um, you wear people out. You make money, but at the expense of whom? At the expense of what inside yourself? What roots does it foster? And what are you going to do about that?
Are you going to do about that? When you talk about what are you going to do about that, one of the things that I did as we were talking through, the 2 years that I was working with you was that I was speaking up and I was vocal and I told, the powers that be and management, but they refused to do anything about it. And I remember the very day that they were on me when the assistant news director said, I had put in some time for spring break so I could have it with my son, who was, I think, 12 or 13 at the time. And they came back and says, well, you owe us 2 days from last year because you were taking all this time off for chemo and radiation and all that. I'm like, well, what are you talking about? I didn't take any extra time off. I took out the time that I was allotted per my medical doctors. And as soon as he said that, I said, you know what? And again, this was maybe about a month and a half before I finally just said, I'm done. I just walked away. But I have been with you for about a year and a half. And by this point, I was getting real bold. I was like, okay, I see the game that's being played. Like, I see it. I see you. So what am I going to lose by keeping it real? And, or as the kids say, keeping it 100 and telling you exactly that I see you and I hear you. And I'm going to call you out on how you're treating me. And as soon as I use the word, I feel like I said, I've been literally trying to save my life from cancer. And now I'm fighting you over 2 days, over 2 work days. And you want that's what we're talking about here. I said, I'm being harassed. And as soon as I said that, the tenor in the room, the tone in the room totally changed. The conversation was over. And I remember seeing him with the general manager, the HR director, the news director, and that assistant news director in the news director's office. And I knew that they were talking about my meeting with the assistant news director, because that word in and of itself, it was like, oh, wait a minute, what's going on? What's happening? And yet I knew, thanks to you, that that was going to happen. That at that moment was the realization that, okay, we got a problem on our hands because she's about to do something and or say something, because she's already told us that she feels a certain kind of way. And that's when I knew it was time to go. It was just time to go. And so my day of selecting to leave, and I don't know if I even told you this, was on June 5th, 2020. It just happened to be my father's birthday, but it was also a week after the George Floyd situation. And I had to do a story. Yes, I had to do a story with mothers about what was happening, how they were feeling, because I put a picture of my son and I just said, I'm holding my son tighter than ever now. And so here's this news director who's like, oh, I saw your picture on Instagram and we want you to do a story on this and da, da, da. And I was like, okay. So for me, it felt very performative coming from them, but I did it because it was also for myself, but also it was important for people to understand and to hear the stories of how real people were feeling because of what happened in Minneapolis. And when that story aired, there was something that just came over me. It was like God was saying, today's the day you got to leave. Like, this is your way of saying goodbye.
Wow.
Because that was part of the story as well. You saw me in my true essence. And sometimes I would have moments of, tears as I was relating with the interviewees. And it just felt right. It just felt right. And I called, my attorney, and I told my husband, I said, today's the day. I'm just out. I'm done. I can't do this anymore. And it felt so good. It was as if that story was my story. And it was my story. I wasn't being seen. No matter how loud I screamed, no one came to my aid. They didn't protect me. They were there to serve as administrators and managers to protect all of us. And you were protecting the offenders, but you weren't protecting me. And I didn't consider myself to be a victim necessarily, but I certainly was the object of a lot of drama and trauma and abuse and mess that was based on power, the power to tell me no raise, promotion, but I don't get the financial benefit that everybody else did that comes along with it. It just seemed as if every time it was my chance for a glow up or a come up, the glow and the rewards that were given to others, I never got that. The rules always changed. And that's when I said, I got to go. I've learned, thanks to you, that this is an abusive relationship and it won't get any better. It only gets worse. It only gets worse.
The thing about, harmful relationships and loving relationships, nourishing relationships with folks like yourself, fellow community members in the workplace, is they always follow patterns. Whether it's whatever the harmful person or situation or institution is, government is, whatever it may be, it always follows the same basic pattern. It's very boring, it's very predictable.
Mhm.
And so you have a chance to look at that pattern. And even though it may seem strange, it's actually encouraging when you recognize that harm happens in patterns, because patterns can be broken, interrupted, and healed. And I think part of that is recognizing, is this a place? Is this a relationship? Is this a situation? How I'm relating to myself and treating myself in relationship with myself and in relationship with the circumstance and others, that can be interrupted, helped, and healed without that being a danger or a disparagement of me and of others involved as well.
I don't know who needs to hear this, but if no one believes your story, I do. I see you and I hear you, and thriving is your birthright. Be well and share wellness.